Hi everybody, my name is David and this is the Cartoon Fortress YouTube channel. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming by the channel to watch this video. Now, I wanted to just weigh in a little bit on a topic that's come up as of late in the collecting community, and specifically with some of the YouTubers and film collectors that I associate with on a little bit more of a regular basis. So Elliot Coen, who has an absolutely fantastic YouTube channel, I will link him in the description. He posted a video recently about a project that he is taking on starting this year, and that is essentially to wipe out his current collection, but then reintroduce into his collection titles that he's basically curating and bringing back into his collection, and then at the same time discarding titles that he doesn't feel maybe is connected to anymore, or doesn't feel like he has to have on his shelf, or titles that he won't be revisiting anytime soon. And so I certainly respect that. First of all, that Elliot's doing what's best for him. But it's definitely piqued some interest in the community, and there's been some response videos. I know one of my other good buddies, film blogger Sam, Nathan Jones, and Aaron Pinn, they've kind of weighed in or kind of commented on the situation, and so I just wanted to give just a few thoughts on how I collect and kind of my thoughts around the minimalism of film collecting. So for me, I don't have a gigantic collection, but I've got more than a few shelves here that I'm surrounded by of really wonderful films and television shows, and I feel definitely very blessed to have the collection that I do. But there are a lot of titles that are no longer on my shelf that were at one point. So over the years, my collecting has evolved. It's changed a lot over the years. From VHS is what I first collected, and that was kind of in my high school years was when I started. So we're talking the end of the 90s was when I really took hold of collecting. I had a really great film history teacher in high school that really springboarded me into classic film, and that's really where most of my interest lies is in classic film. And so I've collected VHS and DVD and Blu-ray, and then I've dabbled just a little bit in 4K titles, even though I don't have 4K equipment yet, so that's kind of yet to be. But I do have some 4K titles, dual format titles that have the Blu-ray disc. But going into 4K is something I'm planning on doing hopefully this year, to kind of start seeing what all the hype is about 4K. But anyway, so my collection's kind of evolved over the years, but there are a lot of titles that I don't have on my shelf any longer. And for me, it's not a numbers game. It's not a race to collect. It's not I don't need the most titles that I can possibly get. I'm just not that type of collector at all. But there's titles that come in the collection and come out. It could be that I pick up a Criterion title, for instance, and do a blind buy, which is definitely something that I do, maybe more than I should. But there could be a blind purchase, and then I watch the film and just don't connect with it. Now, Aaron Pinn brought up a really interesting point that over time, your relationship with a particular film can change. And that is most certainly the case. I won't lie, there are titles that I've gotten rid of and then I have brought back into the collection because I've seen them elsewhere a second time and just really connected with the film. And that's happened a few times actually with my Criterion titles. Since I brought that up a second ago, that's happened with Criterion titles. One that I can think of, for instance, is Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven. That was one that I really didn't care for the first time, and then I watched it again via the Criterion channel and kind of fell in love with it. So I definitely get what Aaron's saying there in terms of your relationship changing with a film over time. And and there may be filmmakers that over time I come to enjoy their work, whereas right now I really don't. But for me, it's kind of I just adjust my collection as I go. I'm not afraid to get rid of titles. And in fact, when I get rid of titles that I'm just not connecting with or just don't feel like I need in my space or whatever it may be, it's actually a good feeling for me to make those adjustments, because I feel like my collection's exactly the way that I want it to be. And that's the other thing, is that collecting is a very personal hobby. At least for me it is. There's a lot of titles in my collection that I collect for sake of nostalgia, and others that I collect because I am interested in world cinema and different cultures, and other titles that I collect because I'm really interested in maybe a specific art form, or I have a lot of different reasons on why I pick up titles. Now, in terms of clearing out my collection and bringing in a certain amount of titles per week, I totally respect what Elliot's doing and some of the others in the community. I personally, I don't think I could go down that route. There's my collection. I feel pretty dang good about where everything's at. Again, there's titles moving in and out on a pretty consistent basis, but making those adjustments as I go feels good for me. And I realize that space can be a concern. I just did last year I did a clearing out of the closet here. So this space behind me used to be a closet. I didn't have any shelves in there, and I ran out of space on my shelves here to my right. And so I needed, more space. So I understand, space being a concern as well, and just needing maybe to make some hard choices. So I totally understand that. But for me, it's just kind of something that I do as I go, just make those adjustments. And something else that I do, and I want to stress this point for people maybe that are new to collecting or that they're thinking about starting a collection, is that we live in a time where there are a lot of great labels. There's some amazing editions being produced for films that we, as a collecting community, never thought that we would see. So 2020 was really proof that that we're in a golden age of physical media collecting. Now, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes over the next few years. And I know this has been talked about a lot, with streaming really kind of taking over. And, we don't know with big studios kind of what their direction will be over the next few years and how that will impact overall licensing and different things like that. But the point that I'm trying to get to is that there's a lot of great labels, and you don't need to collect from every one of those labels. I've gotten more and more picky over the years of what labels I collect from. In fact, there's been labels that I've axed. I feel like I'm not, maybe I'm not happy with the editions they're putting out, or maybe they're really great editions, but I just don't see the benefit of continuing collecting from them. And so that's one way that I've adjusted my collection, I guess, is that I've stopped collecting from some labels and I'm just really concentrated and focused on the labels that I do want to collect from. And so just remaining a bit more focused, I think, is really what helps me. But as I said before, collecting is a very personal thing, and so and that's the message that I was getting from Elliot, for sure, was that collecting is a personal thing. And so it's, if you want to collect a certain way, you collect that way. It's whatever makes sense to you. So I feel like I fall kind of right on the fence in terms of minimalism and just collecting. I fall in the middle because I don't think I don't feel any need to collect everything, or to collect a gigantic amount of films and television shows and things like that. But rather being focused and making really well thought out decisions, and bringing in items to the collection that I feel like I'm really going to enjoy. And so I know with different genres and things that I collect, I've even concentrated a lot there, so I know kind of what genres tend to work really well with me and which ones don't. And this is more in terms of blind buying. Obviously, if I've seen a film and I love a film, I know buying that is a safe bet because I love the film. But in the blind buying, I've come to realize, oh, okay, this genre really works for me. Documentary filmmaking is something that I love. Film noir is something that I really love. Maybe not as much on, musicals. I'm not a huge fan of, but there's definitely musicals that I enjoy, but that's a genre that I have to be a lot more careful with. Or, for me, there's even, because I do love collecting world cinema, but there's even particular works within world cinema that I know I don't gravitate towards as much. So anyways, I'm blabbing on at this point. I just wanted to weigh in and take part in this discussion, and I'm glad that we can do that we can have this discussion, and that we can have differing viewpoints maybe, but have good conversation about it, which I think is exactly the way that it should be. In the future, I'm tempted to make some videos about collecting and labels that I really enjoy, and even maybe get down to even the packaging style and things like that I really enjoy. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd like to see, a video maybe on different packaging styles and different, obviously it's about the films. Collecting is about bringing in films that you really enjoy. Packaging is secondary to the film entirely. But if you'd like to see a video on just the different types of packaging that are prominent, and even some of the more weird kind of one-off packaging types, definitely let me know in the comments, and I would love to produce a video like that. But anyways, I am going to go ahead and sign off now. If you found this babbling on helpful in any way, I invite you to hit the subscribe button. And until next time, my name is David. I'm signing off with the Cartoon Fortress channel, and you have a great day.